To most, it's a fate worse than death, to be cast aside, left to wander outside the warm embrace of acceptance. But what the masses fail to understand is that being an outcast is freedom in disguise. No expectations, no chains of conformity, binding you to the will of the herd. Life is easier when you're not one of them, because when you're on the outside, you become untouchable, unseen, beyond the reach of their rules. You don't need to follow their scripts or play their petty games. You're free to craft your own identity, unburdened by the weight of fitting in, while the rest scramble for approval, bending themselves into shapes that don't fit. You stand alone, untethered, unrestricted. They chase acceptance, like dogs, after a bone, terrified of stepping out of line, of saying the wrong thing, of showing too much of their true selves. But the outcast is spared that misery. Being alone isn't a curse, it's a liberation. You owe no one an explanation, no one an apology. Isolation sharpens you, hones your mind, forces you to become something more than just another cog in their machine. You're free to think, to dream, to act without the constant suffocating gaze of the crowd judging your every move. People see outcasts as broken, as weak, because they measure strength in numbers. But there's a different kind of power in standing alone. It's the strength of the wolf who's left the pack, who learned to hunt alone, who can move through the darkness without the safety net of others. When you're on the fringe, you learn things. You learn to listen to yourself, to trust your instincts, to rely on the only constant in your life, your own mind. While others drown in the noise of opinions and expectations, you find clarity in the silence. It's a crucible, a forge where all that's unnecessary is burned away, leaving behind something far more dangerous, a soul that answers to no one. Isolation creates resilience. There's no one to catch you when you fall, no one to pick up the pieces when you break. And that's where your power comes from. Because each time you shatter, each time you're pushed into the darkness, you learn to rebuild yourself stronger, harder, more indestructible. The outcast has no safety net, no one to cushion the blows. But that's what makes life easier. You become your own support, your own savior. You're no longer bound by the fragile strings that tie people together, constantly fearing when the next one will snap. You let them go willingly, embracing the solitude that others fear like a plague. Being on the outside means no masks, no pretenses, no need to contort yourself into something acceptable. You wear your scars openly, your flaws displayed for all to see. And in doing so, you strip away the power others have over you. There's no hiding, no pretending. You become real, raw, unfiltered, while the rest are trapped in a game of appearances, maintaining a facade that drains them of life. You're free to be whatever you choose. Outcasts live in the light of their own authenticity, unafraid to show their darkness, unafraid to break the mold, because there's no mold to break. There's no script to follow. There's only the raw, uncharted path of the outsider. Life is easier as an outcast, because no one can control what they don't understand. You're the enigma, the puzzle they can't solve, the wild card in a world of predictable players. The outcast stands outside their reach, outside their laws, outside their influence, and that makes you a threat to their comfort, to their illusion of control. When you're not tied to the strings of validation, you're free to move, to adapt, to evolve in ways they can't even fathom. That's why the outcast is feared, shunned, because to be an outcast is to hold the one thing everyone craves but never achieves: absolute freedom, dangerous freedom. Now that is where life truly begins. Freedom isn't supposed to be safe, wrapped up neatly in the comfort of predictability. Real freedom is chaotic, brutal, unrelenting. It's choosing to stand alone on the edge, knowing one wrong move could send you plummeting into the abyss. But that's where strength is forged, where the chains break, where the soul finds its truest form. Peaceful slavery, on the other hand, is a seductive trap. It lulls you into believing that safety is the highest goal, that avoiding risk is the path to happiness. But safety is a slow, creeping death. It binds you to comfort, keeps you docile, strips you of your essence, one compromise at a time. They call it peace, but what is it really? A cage with velvet bars, a gilded prison where you hand over your freedom in exchange for security. To be safe, to be comfortable. These are illusions sold to the weak. Peaceful slavery means never stepping outside the line, never challenging the status quo, never daring to pursue what sets your soul on fire. It's the death of passion, the erasure of potential. And the cost? Your very self. The mind craves stability, but the spirit shrivels in its shadow, while the slaves of peace sleepwalk through their lives. Those who choose freedom, the dangerous kind, burn brightly in the darkness, daring to carve out their own path, no matter the risk. Because here's the secret: freedom will terrify you. It's supposed to. It's unpredictable, wild, a storm that can tear through everything you thought you knew. But what is the alternative? To be shackled by comfort, bound by routine, imprisoned by the fear of stepping out of line. Better to face the storm, to embrace the danger, than to rot in the safety of your own limitations. Peaceful slavery tells you to accept what is given, to settle for what you have. Dangerous freedom tells you to take what you want, to risk everything, to walk the line between creation and destruction. It's a risk worth taking because it's a life truly lived. Those who choose peaceful slavery bow their heads, whispering softly to themselves that it's enough, that it's better this way, that the chains are worth the calm. They live in quiet desperation, suffocating beneath the weight of their own unfulfilled desires. They build their lives out of half measures, convincing themselves that it's safer not to want more, not to fight for more, not to risk losing everything for the chance to gain it all. And what do they become? Hollow shells, drifting through a life of complacency, too afraid to feel the fire of freedom. They'd rather be caged, controlled, imprisoned by their own comfort than take a single step into the unknown. But those who crave dangerous freedom would rather risk everything than live a lie. They'd rather be torn apart by the struggle than be suffocated by safety. Because dangerous freedom means facing the edge, standing on the precipice, staring into the chaos, and choosing to step forward anyway. It's understanding that the only real chains are the ones you place on yourself, and breaking them no matter the cost. Because while peaceful slavery gives you predictability, a life devoid of risk, it also robs you of everything that makes life worth living. It robs you of the power to shape your destiny, to chase the impossible, to become something more. Choose dangerous freedom. Choose to walk the knife's edge. Let the others huddle in their safe little worlds, hiding behind rules and expectations, shivering at the thought of losing their comfort. You, on the other hand, will walk through the fire, unchained, unbroken. You'll embrace the chaos, knowing that every risk, every gamble, every step into the unknown is a step toward becoming something extraordinary. Because dangerous freedom is alive. It pulses with energy, with potential, with the raw, unfiltered essence of life itself. And those who dare to grasp it, those who are willing to throw themselves into the storm, become forces that no one can control. The one who dares to lead the orchestra. That's no role for the faint-hearted. To command the symphony, to bring chaos into order, to make the music bend to your will, it requires a level of defiance that most never achieve. Because to lead, truly lead, means turning your back to the crowd. No glances over your shoulder, no looking for their approval, no basking in their applause. Those who crave the adoration of the masses can never conduct greatness. Their need for recognition chains them, binds them, reduces them to mere performers, dancing to the tune of others' expectations. But the conductor, the true leader, steps into the center and faces away, unflinching, unyielding. The crowd is noise, a chorus of distractions that pulls at the soul, 1,000 hands reaching out, trying to tug you off your path, to twist you into the shape they desire. But to create something truly powerful, something magnificent, you must sever that connection, cut the strings that pull you toward the need to please. Turn your back on their opinions, on their demands. Ignore the seductive lure of approval. Let them scream. Let them cheer. Let them whisper. It's all meaningless. The only sound that matters is the music you're bringing to life, the vision you're weaving out of the silence. The crowd is fickle, always shifting, never satisfied for long. To be guided by their desires is to lose yourself in the noise. Focus on the symphony, not the spectators. It's a cold, ruthless choice, but necessary, because those who lead with one eye on the crowd always falter. Their hands shake, their movements become uncertain, hesitant, and hesitation is death to any creation worth making. If you want to create something that will echo through the ages, that will leave its mark long after the applause has faded, you must tune them out. Forget their presence. Forget their judgment. You're not here to entertain. You're here to conduct, to wield power with every motion, to draw out the music that only you can hear. To lead the orchestra means embracing isolation. You stand alone, back-turned, vulnerable to the crowd's gaze. But vulnerability is strength. It means you've turned away from the safety of validation, turned away from the comfort of the herd. You're exposed, open to their opinions, their scorn, their jealousy, and still, you choose to lead. That's what separates the great from the mediocre. Anyone can pander to the crowd, anyone can play to their whims, but to create, to lead, to stand at the center and command something greater than yourself, you must cut yourself off from the craving to be liked, to be accepted. You must become an island, a solitary force that answers only to the music in your head. And when you turn your back, something shifts. The crowd loses its power. They are no longer the masters of your performance. You are. You're no longer seeking their gaze, their approval. You've taken control of the stage, and they, helpless, become mere spectators to the unfolding of your will. They want to shape you, to pull you into the fold, to make you one of them again, a follower, a servant to their applause. But when you refuse, when you turn your back and embrace the solitude of leadership, they have no hold over you. You've made your choice. You've chosen the music, over the noise, the vision over the praise. A leader, with his back to the crowd, is free. Free from the chains of the weak. Free from the endless need to conform. You stand, back turned, facing the unknown, facing the music that no one else can hear. And that's where greatness lies, in that defiance, that refusal to yield. The crowd cannot comprehend it. They crave recognition, adoration, a place in the spotlight. But you crave creation. You crave power, the power to shape something beautiful out of the void. And that requires turning away, turning inward, letting the crowd fall away until it's just you and the music, just you and the masterpiece you were meant to bring to life. The average mind recoils at the silence, desperate for the chaos, the noise, the endless stimulation that numbs them to their own insignificance. But for those who understand its power, for those who can sit in that stillness and embrace it, it is within that quiet monotony that the real work begins. The stillness becomes fertile ground, a vast, untouched expanse where the creative mind roams free, weaving new worlds from the emptiness. Monotony is misunderstood. People think it means stagnation, death to the spirit, but in reality, it is the foundation for creation. Routine, repetition, these are the subtle instruments that sculpt the mind into something more. Because only when the world outside falls silent, when distractions fade, does the real noise begin. The noise of thoughts, ideas, dreams that had been buried beneath the constant hum of superficiality. The mind, once stripped of the frantic scramble for stimulation, turns inward, unraveling itself, revealing the deep, untapped wells of creativity lying dormant beneath the surface. The monotony is not the enemy. It is the door, the gatekeeper to realms of thought that most never dare to enter. And that's where the transformation begins. Creativity, raw and unfiltered, is the alchemist's tool, the sorcerer's wand. It reshapes, redefines, breaks down the old self, and rebuilds something truer, something real. Those who fear the solitude of a quiet life have never grasped this power. They think the stillness will drive them mad, that it will reduce them to a hollow shell. But it's the opposite. In the silence, you confront yourself. You tear away the masks, the layers of who you've been told to be. And for the first time, you start to see. You start to create, not just art, but yourself. Every thought, every idea, every act of creation becomes a step closer to uncovering your own essence, your own potential. Creativity is not just the tool. It is the weapon, the map, the guide to finding who you really are beneath the static of life. It is the most powerful instrument of self-discovery, cutting through the noise of expectations, obligations, illusions. When you create, you unlock pieces of yourself that had been hidden away, chained up by the constraints of what you were supposed to be. With each brushstroke, each word, each melody, you chip away at the facade until all that's left is something raw, something pure, something undeniably real. The process is brutal, relentless. But to master creativity is to master yourself in a world that tries to mold you into conformity, that tries to drown you in superficiality. Creativity is your rebellion. It's the one thing they can never touch, never control, because it comes from a place beyond their reach. It's the ultimate act of defiance, to sit alone in the stillness and shape something new, something that defies categorization, that defies limitation. The mind, unshackled by the mundane, becomes a crucible for transformation. You delve deeper, darker, into the unknown spaces of your psyche, bringing back pieces of yourself that had long been forgotten. Because creativity is not about finding something outside. It's about drawing out what's been buried within. Most people live their entire lives on the surface, afraid to dive deeper, to confront the dark waters of their own subconscious. But for those who dare, those who embrace the solitude, the monotony, the seemingly endless quiet of a life lived inward, they find something far more valuable than peace. They find the self, the core, the raw, unfiltered essence of who they are. The person that can only be forged in the silence, in the dark, in the crucible of creation. The monotony of a quiet life, the solitude of isolation. It's not a punishment. It's a gift. It's the very space where creativity breathes, where the mind sharpens itself against the whetstone of silence. And with that creativity, you hold the power to reshape not just your own reality, but the reality of anyone who comes into contact with what you create. It is the ultimate tool, the ultimate weapon, the ultimate key to liberation. Because in the end, creativity is the truest form of freedom. It's the power to break free from the chains of who you were and become who you were always meant to be. And once you've tasted that, once you've felt the rush of that power, there's no going back. Exclusivity, the currency of the powerful. Those who scatter themselves to the winds, who chase after every flicker of attention, dilute their essence. They become common, predictable, easy to forget. But when you remain exclusive, when you hold back, when you guard your energy like a treasure that only a select few can glimpse, something shifts. The world starts to notice. People start to wonder. And those who once dismissed you start to feel an unfamiliar pang, a sense of being shut out, of being denied access to something they didn't even know they wanted. Exclusivity breeds allure. It draws in those who are used to having everything, those who are rarely denied. And when they are denied, it drives them mad with curiosity. It's a paradox, isn't it? The more you withhold, the more they desire. The less accessible you make yourself, the more valuable you become. But it's a game of restraint, a dangerous dance. Most people can't handle it. They're too desperate for connection, for validation, for the cheap thrill of being wanted. So they spread themselves thin, giving away pieces of themselves to anyone who asks, thinking that will make them significant. But it's the opposite. Scarcity is what creates value. When everyone has access, the value plummets. But when you are seen rarely, when your presence is felt sparingly, it creates a hunger. And that hunger is where real power lies. Remaining exclusive is about more than just scarcity, though. It's about setting a standard, drawing a line that only a rare few will cross. Most people will see that line and turn away, frustrated by the challenge, unwilling to meet the demands. And good. Let them fall away, fade into the background, because what's left is the gold. The ones who rise to meet your level. The ones who are worthy. When you hold yourself to a higher standard, when you refuse to bend, you filter out the weak, the mediocre, the opportunists. And what's left are those who reflect that same exclusivity back. Like a track slick. Power draws power. You want to surround yourself with excellence? Then start by being exclusive. Exclusivity is a form of seduction, a game of making others feel as if they must earn your attention, your energy, your time. And when they do earn it, when they finally step inside your circle, it feels like a privilege. because it is a privilege to be in the presence of someone who values themselves so highly, who doesn't give themselves away easily. That's rare. That's intoxicating. But only for those who understand it. Only for those who are accustomed to moving in circles, where every word, every glance, every moment carries weight. The others, the masses, won't get it. They'll call you arrogant, selfish, detached. Let them. Exclusivity is meant to repel the average and attract the exceptional. Be exclusive in your thoughts, in your words, in your actions. Don't cheapen your value by offering it to everyone. Protect it, shield it, hone it until it becomes something that only the elite can touch. And by elite, that doesn't mean wealth or status. It means mindset, drive, intensity. When you remain exclusive, you create a gravitational pull that draws in others who hold themselves to that same standard. It's like a beacon in the night, calling to those who see the world differently, those who are tired of the mediocrity, of the endless sea of sameness. You become a mirror, reflecting back the rarity that others see in themselves.